Hello, STEM Nation. Jeff here, and welcome to episode number 12 of STEM on Fire, where we interview practicing professionals in the area of science, technology, engineering, and math. Let's start by thanking our sponsor, Audible, who is offering a free audiobook. Just head over to stemonfirebook.com. That's stemonfirebook.com to get your free audiobook. Now let's get fired up today with our guest, Gregg, and I hope our chat will help ignite your passion towards a STEM career. Gregg Eberhardt has a Bachelor of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering and an MBA, which is a Master's in Business, from Marquette University. He has held positions at Spalding, Briggs & Stratton, GE, and most recently at Generac as a product manager. Welcome to the show, Gregg. Fill in any gaps and share a bit of your personal life.
Certainly. Thank you, Jeff, for inviting me to be on. I'm excited about this, and quite frankly, I'm honored. So, a little bit more my personal background. I'm also a husband and a father. My most two important roles, and then I've got a pretty extensive athletic background. I'm a 3-time Ironman finisher, black belt in Taekwondo, scuba certified. I did some scouting work for the Milwaukee Brewers, and I was a high school basketball referee and official for a few years. So I certainly try to round out on the athletic side.
There you go, 3-time Ironman. I'm impressed. I did a marathon myself, and that was challenging, and no Ironmans in the future for me.
It's amazing what the human body can do.
It is, right? It's definitely mind over body. So let's dig in here, Gregg. So you've got a mechanical engineering degree and a master's in business, an MBA. For those folks that aren't familiar with mechanical engineering, and probably most are, but could you give some examples of career opportunities from your perspective?
Sure. Mechanical engineering, from my perspective, is certainly the most broadest of the engineering field. You can be working from designing mechanical components, engines, to hardware for electronics. You can be working on HVAC systems, heating, cooling. Because of your fluid dynamics background, you can be working on, quite frankly, rocket ships, with again the fluids and the mechanical and the material experience that you have and the training that you get with that. So it's the mechanical is a lot more the dynamic of the engineering fields that you can get into. So, and that's really why I wanted to get into it, because at the time when I was going through college, it was, I enjoyed engineering, but didn't exactly know where I was going to end up or what I wanted to be doing when I came out of engineering. And I actually started off as a process engineer or manufacturing engineer, and that mechanical background helped me extensively, being able to understand how the products were designed and how they went together. So in order to help with people on the manufacturing floor to make things run more smoothly.
So why did you change from process engineering to mechanical engineering?
Well, the process engineer job that I originally started off with, I was looking for a first job, and that's what I ended up getting. And I got involved with the lean manufacturing very early on in my career, and I really enjoyed that. I actually ended up running a Kaizen program in my 20s at about a $500 million organization in the greater Milwaukee area, and it was a lot of fun helping people improve the way that they work and getting them involved to actually do that. What I had this kind of an aha moment in the late 90s, and it was, oh my gosh, just because you're designing something in the United States, that doesn't mean that you are going to have to manufacture it in the United States. And that's when the globalization really was starting to truly take off. And I figured I needed to get some professional design experience. And so I ended up doing that. And that led me eventually into a project engineering role. That's when I also went and I got my MBA with a marketing emphasis, and led me from working in what I call the back end of businesses, of the manufacturing side, to the front end, which is now we're with a product or high-level program management, where it's you're understanding where the marketplace is, where it's going, and then understanding that the customer wants and needs, and then developing new products and services. But you need to have, I believe, that technical background, at least for the products and services that I work in, to be able to truly to relate to where the customers are and what they're looking for. So by starting in that process engineering, manufacturing engineering, to design engineering, to project engineering, to program management and product management, I've had this career progression that has allowed me to work with various different functions within the company, and what you end up learning, you don't necessarily get this when you're in college, you don't realize this, but each function within a company really has its own language. So supply chain, marketing, finance, operations, quality, they bring very important pieces to the overall picture, but they're focused on their certain areas, and they'll use different language and a different and with that different perspective, you have to understand what they're looking for in order to help lead them and lead that whole team to get to the final goal and the vision of creating these new products and services and actually becoming a more profitable organization.
Sounds like we kind of dug into what your specific area of expertise is. Is there anything you'd like to add to that that's very specific to what you do?
People will use the phrase "herding cats" because everybody is trying to get their stuff done. Especially if you work in a large organization, which is a matrix, and you do not have direct control over people. You have to influence them. So you have to have the ability to create the vision of what the problem is and what needs to be done, and through that, then how important they are to and their role is to getting this particular projects completed. It's a lot of soft skills, but in order to communicate, you have to have I believe you have to have the technical background and understanding in order to get through and solve problems and help them to get through, because you can be able to push back, whether it's hey, it's going to take me 8 weeks to be able to design this. Well, let's talk this through. I think that we can do it sooner, and let's understand what the restrictions are. And the flip side, I've even had talks with people where they go, "Oh yeah, I can do this in a couple days," and I'm going, I think we need to reconsider that because I see some potential problems. Let's add a couple weeks to this on the time frame, because we've got other projects that are hitting at the same time, and I think this is going to be more complex than what you think.
Yeah, and Greg, I think you kind of touched on something when you were describing what you've done over the years, and that for STEM Nation, when you graduate college and you get out into the real world, you're going to have, I'll say, multiple careers within your career, and it can even be multiple careers within the same company. So keep your options open, look for new opportunities, and take advantage of the opportunities that come your way.
Oh, absolutely. You and without a doubt, we're living in the most rapidly changing times in human history. People that are coming out of their undergrads right now, in 5 years they could be working for a company that doesn't even exist at the moment, because of whether it's the software industry or what have you, and the analytics, which is changing the world. It is so incredible that the amount of change and amount of information, and that goes to being able. You have to be a lifelong learner. So it's because without that, you're going to get caught well behind the curve, and people are going to be able to adapt and get to you. So you got to be aware of what's all going on from a marketplace macroeconomic standpoint.
Yeah, and Greg, you've touched on that, right? A lifelong learner. For those of you in STEM Nation that have been listening to the other podcasts, this isn't the first time you've heard that. You need to be a lifelong learner if you want to continue to be successful out in the real world. So, Greg, what is one thing that has you really fired up about mechanical engineering or business in general, since you've got an MBA, and kind of more in the product management or program management roles?
The topic that I would think with that is one I just happened to briefly touch upon. That's the analytics. Being able to use data to understand what is happening and then using that data wisely to make decisions. That's the thing that's changing dramatically. Amazon is the prime example of that. They know what people want almost before the consumers know. Target is actually another fantastic example of that as well. How they have been able to anticipate people's next purchases because of a previous purchase is almost scary. But this is something that it's going to drive a different it's going to drive different types of companies. It's going to drive different types of processes. You have to be aware of, you're not going to be able to anticipate 10 years down the road where this is going to go, but you got to be involved with this, and you got to be involved with this right now. People are using the term, of course, AI, which the analytics goes right into. So that is a really big for businesses in general, but for a product manager or a program manager, you're going to be involved with those types of systems.
STEM Nation, if you're in college and looking for electives and you see something that says like data analytics or artificial intelligence, I don't think it matters what discipline of STEM you're in. I would highly recommend taking that class to at least get familiar with the language. Like Gregg was saying, is different aspects within a company, different groups, marketing, engineering, program management, product management, they all have different languages. And if you can speak the language of machine learning, artificial intelligence, big data, there's going to be even more opportunities that open up to you. So highly recommended to take advantage of that for an elective. And if you're in high school, take a look at data analytics and see what's out there, and see if that might interest you.
I even was at a seminar a couple months ago, put on by a company that does analytics, and they're offering their software for free to people to actually start off and just start doing the programming. It was I was actually kind of surprised with that, but they want to hook people in on their software, and it's something that they even mentioned they'll do free training at schools. I would totally agree with you, Jeff, on if there's any type of student that has any ability to take even just one class or doing something even online, get familiar with the analytics or the artificial intelligence. It is going to benefit you.
Absolutely. Hey, Gregg, we're going to change gears here a little bit, and we're going to move into an aha moment. So, Gregg, if you could take us to a moment in time of an incredible aha moment you've had at work or your personal life, and tell us a story and how you turned that aha moment into success.
The one that really jumps out is the one that I mentioned that happened to me in the late 90s, and that was that when the start of the globalization of companies designing in one area of the world but manufacturing in another, and even having with larger companies being able to design 24/7 or 24/5 at the worst case, where you could have designs being worked, the same design but product being worked on in U.S. and then also in China, so that because of the different time zones. That was really big for me, and that shifted my career path. So the big success for me really was just taking my career in a different area, and it's been very good for me because it helps me become more well-rounded as a businessman, as a individual. The other aha moment that I probably would say came about when I was actually I started off in engineering management from my grad school, and I was talking with a business professor, and I was going back and forth between, do I stay in engineering management? Do I shift over to the MBA? And his first response was, "You're an engineer." And I had been with this professor for a full semester. And like, okay, so that kind of, it was a helpful for a self-realization of this, some of the additional talents and skills that I have that I can bring to the table. Certainly have that technical background, which is, again, critical for the industries that I've worked in, being able to communicate, move outside of my introvert normalcy and acting more extrovert in the business world has been beneficial with that. And I would certainly encourage if anybody out in the STEM nation that's going to college and enjoys technical background, but also enjoys talking and communicating, there are various different roles that you can go to. You can moving into sales engineer, which is a critical role to be able to communicate to customers on the benefits of products and services, or again moving into more whether it is moving into a program or a product management role. Those opportunities are out there, but if you want to just focus in on the designing and the engineering, do that then. I mean, it's that becoming self-aware of what your true talents are is very important.
Yep, and I agree with that, Greg. The going for a STEM degree, engineering, let's say, the doors are wide open. So even if you go, geez, I would never want to sit in a cube and design all my life, still go for that engineering degree because you're going to learn the language and you can morph that engineering degree into a sales role, into a marketing role. You can take it wherever you want to take it.
Absolutely. And what's really nice about any type of these STEM degrees is they're difficult. You want to have something that is applicable, that you can use. You can quite frankly go and have a career and have a job. It's a huge benefit to, quite frankly, to society to be able to have more engineers, more scientists. But even if you want to move out of that, having that technical background, and also more importantly, not just the technical background, but it's the way you solve problems, the logical way that you go through that. It's you can match up to somebody that has come out of law school, and lawyers are trained to go through a certain process for their rationalization and how they solve problems. Same thing with anybody coming out with a technical degree, and that is critical for solving any type of problems, whether it's an engineering or science, business, finance, being able to work through those. And another thing is being comfortable with numbers. When you have that comfort level, that is a huge benefit, because there are a number of people who just they see numbers and they freeze up. It's not that you have to be a 4.0 and have taken in all your calculus classes, but if you're comfortable with the numbers, you're comfortable with the principles, that's more than gets halfway there. It's a huge benefit.
STEM Nation, other podcasts, you've heard it. There's engineers out there that, they struggled through calculus. They got F's in calculus. They had to retake calculus, and they weren't really all that great in math, but they worked through it. And in the end, they were still absolutely successful in the STEM careers. And Greg, you hit it on the head. These STEM curriculums, they are not easy, at least for most of us. Maybe the top 1%, you go to class, never take notes, and you ace everything. But for the normal people out there, they are challenging. So could you take us back to when you were 18 and give some advice to STEM Nation on what you think they need to be successful going through college?
Persistence is definitely going to keep you get you over the hump. You're going to run into, no matter how good you are, you're going to run into some type of difficulty, and that's okay. And that in the end is actually good. It's going to make you a better person to go through some of those struggles. And so that being able just to persist through trials, and just as you said, if you don't get the grade that you need in the class, if you get below a C and you need, or if you fail a calc class, take it again. You will get better. You will get through it. Just stick through it. You're gonna get through it. It's going to be fine, and just continue to progress. I wish I would have done those like personality behavior tests back then, the DISC profile, the Briggs-Meyer, now the Strength Finders 2.0. Being able to understand what your strengths are it is helpful, because you're going to understand how you function, and then you can work with that. It doesn't drive you to make a decision of, I'm going to ship my major, but it helps you understand, okay, I need to go get some help and some tutoring in this area, because this is a weakness of mine. Or, hey, I'm really good at being analytical. Having that self-awareness is really important, and it'll help you out later on in your career.
Yeah, and in STEM Nation, Gregg said, if you need help, go get a tutor. Going and getting a tutor doesn't mean you're not smart. It means you're probably one of the most intelligent people, because you realize you need help and you actually take action and go get help. So thank you for that, Gregg. And Gregg, from a skills or attributes, what do you think are needed when you transition from college into your career?
Something that you don't have is you don't understand the general engineering processes that you need to do to have a functioning engineering organization, to communicate appropriately. Everything from what needs to be on a drawing to how that gets that whole drawing moves through the process to the supply chain, to quality. By having that understanding, and the only real way that you're going to get that background is to actually get experience. So I would highly recommend getting internships, co-oping if you can. That brings a whole bunch of additional of skills that you're going to need for your career. It seems really basic, but it's critical. If you don't, when you're designing a particular product, having the right tolerances, and having tolerance stack-ups and geometric tolerancing. These things are not typically given and trained in undergrads, because you're focused on fluid dynamics and what's going on from a metallurgy standpoint for these different type of products, and how what's going on from a theory standpoint. It's the whole applicable skills that you really do need.
Yeah, and STEM Nation, you can get those skills, start learning those skills by getting the internships, by getting the co-ops, gaining that experience out in the real world. And I'll say that many companies, when you graduate after your 4-year degree, they may not hire you because you don't have experience. They're actually looking for experienced engineers coming right out of college. And Gregg, we are going to move into the lightning round. Are you ready?
Yes.
What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
From a technical standpoint, it was actually my engineering mentor. He had told me when you take over a project from somebody else that hasn't been finished, double check everything. Because he said that's most of the time how he gets burned is because he hasn't checked a previous person's work, and it has happened to me as well. So that would be probably the best technical advice from an engineering standpoint.
Trust but verify. And what is a personal habit that contributes to your success?
Being a continual learner, learning from day one to day last. That is something that really has helped me as my career has adjusted, and being able to persevere. We talked about the Ironman stuff before. You learn a lot about yourself when you're on your bike for 6 hours doing a 100-mile ride. It is actually moves over into your career. Like, okay, just keep going. And also keep the team moving. It's not just about when you're leading a team. It's not about you anymore. It's about the team.
And what is a favorite internet resource or phone app, and why?
LinkedIn. It's not only a great tool for networking, but it has become for me a great way to find articles to keep up to date on, whether it's Harvard Business Review, where it's or it's something on a technical side from analytics. A lot of people are using that to drive where how they're posting their articles. So I'd absolutely say for me it's LinkedIn.
and I love LinkedIn as well. For STEM Nation, even if you're in high school, go create a LinkedIn profile up there. If you're thinking about one of the STEM careers, go ahead and put that out. And as you meet people, go and do a LinkedIn request with them, and your network will get larger and larger. And Gregg, what is one book you recommend and why?
If I had to choose one book, it would be the Bible. Not from a technical standpoint, it's just from a life standpoint. You can be the greatest engineer, greatest scientist in the world, but answers to life are in that book. For a technical book, I'd say Skunk Works. That was a book that came out in the 90s, and it talks about the Lockheed division that developed the U-2 plane, the SR-71, the F-117 stealth fighter, and it's a fantastic story. I think anybody with a technical background would find that interesting.
Yeah, what Gregg's talking about there, Skunk Works, it's not, skunks like you think of it from an animal standpoint, but Skunk Works is kind of a name given to projects where it's kind of under the radar, where they grab some engineers, maybe some product planning folks, and say, just go off and go create this and just make it happen. And those are actually really fun, projects to be on, because you can kind of do whatever you want, and they're a blast. Gregg, as we wrap up here, can you share a parting piece of guidance for STEM Nation? And then we'll say goodbye.
Yeah, I'm just going to reiterate the last stuff that we had talked about earlier. Be a continual learner. It is going to help you for your career and your personal life. You're really just starting on your road here. If you come in, whether you're in high school or an undergrad, you will be learning for the rest of your life, and that's a lot of fun. There's a lot of fun with that. And be persistent, persevere. There are always going to be bad days, but keep moving through it. It will get better, and lead those teams. You can do it, and find ways to get everybody moving forward.
Thanks, Gregg, for all that valuable insight. And with that, we'll say goodbye. I hope you enjoyed that discussion today with Gregg. Head on over to STEMonfire.com, subscribe to the email list to keep up with the latest happenings, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast player. And again, if you are getting value from this podcast, please share it with a friend. Tune in next week where we talk with Jordan, who is a mechanical engineer. And until next time, I hope this chat has helped ignite your passion towards a STEM career.